This week on the Rutledge Perspective, we're going to talk a little bit about planning. And I hadn't planned for this week to be the way it was going to be. We had a tropical storm come through Houston this week, and timing, we have those divine downloads. And so it really did put a highlight on this whole idea of planning versus paranoia. And for those of you who've been following me for a while, and maybe for those of you who are new to the Rutledge Perspective, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I am a planner. I'm a big planner. And when I can't plan things, it just makes me a little nervous. Because as you've heard, 6 P's, that's how I grew up, right? Proper prior planning prevents poor performance. So you got to plan. And you got to plan, and you got to plan, and you know what? You got to plan. But here's the thing to remember, is that plans also have to include some flexibility, and they have to include some grace. Because as the saying goes, man plans, God laughs. Something's always going to happen that you couldn't plan for. Always. Like a storm that takes your power out for 8 hours on the day that you need to get all of this stuff done. And yet, we give ourselves kind of all this pressure to be exceptional planners, to make sure we get everything done and everything's outlined and everything is exactly where it's supposed to be at all times. And that moves very quickly, or can move very quickly, into this kind of paralysis state. I heard someone, as they were commenting on a post I did this week, say, yeah, I get into analysis paralysis. And then I had another friend who has this really great opportunity in her role. And she's like, yeah, but I get stuck in ideation. I get stuck in all these great ideas, but then we got to really make some things happen because I've got these really big, grand, lofty ideas. But moving that to execution, that's a chore. And the other little secret is every leader has some of that to some extent, because we are responsible and accountable for setting the goals and making sure the mission is clear and moving things forward and making sure everything gets done and just being sure that stuff is executed the way it should be executed. But we can get tied up in our own underwear about what needs to happen and when and how it needs to happen. We can move easily from planning and being strategic, right? And making sure that we go all the way from strategy down to tactics and getting our team involved in that piece and letting people see how their work and their ideas all connect to the overall goal. And we can move quickly from that into this paralyzing paranoia because we're so afraid we're going to miss something. We're so afraid something's going to blow up that we do nothing. And the thing is, doing nothing is also a decision. And there's also impact of doing nothing. There's impact of never getting to execution. There's impact of spending too much time in planning. It's that idea of understanding there's sometimes you need to be slow and precise, and other times you need to be quick and approximate. When you're looking at companies that are innovative companies move fast. They are quick to failure. Let's put something out there. Let's try it. Let's see what happens. And let's keep tweaking along the way. That's what innovation is. Innovation is about failure and continually improving and continually moving. But as planners have a hard time a lot with some of that idea of failure. We try to prevent as much of that as possible. There's that probably because we want to do it well. That's most of the time, right? We really want to do a good job. But there's also a little bit of fear in that. The fear of, well, if something happens, are we going to be able to fix it? Are we going to be able to fix it in time? Is it going to be too big an impact to people if we don't pay attention to all of the stuff that could happen in the very beginning? But we can't plan for everything. And that little bit of paranoia that we sometimes hear and we sometimes feel is all about wanting to be perfect. And as a coach that I had said, the P in perfection is for poison. If we are so worried about being perfect, if we're so worried about having the perfect plan and nothing going wrong, then we don't move quickly. We aren't innovative. We don't give ourselves space to be flexible and adaptable in the plan. And we sit in stagnation, which is not where great leaders want to be. Great leaders want to be pushing things forward. Great leaders want to be ensuring that we are moving towards the goal and executing the plans and helping our teams learn how to move and execute and think critically and think circular around everything that could happen and all the possibilities. And that's why you also look at really great diverse, right? Teams, diverse in terms of experience and exposure and thought and execution styles, because that's where you get the best proper prior planning, because people have seen different angles at the same problem. So instead of going through and letting an inability to plan or letting some kind of unforeseen issue take you completely off the rails, completely derail you, move you out of your game, move you out of the best leadership style that you have, right? Move you into that comfort style, which can sometimes be harsh, uncommunicative, really nasty as opposed to helpful and clear. Know that planning and proper planning also includes flexibility and adaptability. Proper planning means that you are able to think through a process, move forward, understand if it's going to be really slow and precise because there are really high stakes, or whether you can be quick and approximate because you're in an innovation stage. And be okay with all of that and everything in between. Because great leaders understand that that move from real planning to paranoia is a really fine line. That we can get stuck in that planning phase and we never move to execution. That we can never get everything absolutely perfect. It's not possible. But what is possible is to have as much information as you can at the time, as much clarity as you can at the time, to move with intention, to move with a goal in mind, and to keep your eyes open and your ears open and your mind open to listen actively, to hear what is said, to hear what's not said, to see beyond just an ability to respond, but to understand what's happening in the whole environment, so that even with this plan, you've built in enough flexibility that you are able to respond when something goes awry, because it will. It will. Be that building that architects have started to build, right? That have little rollers on them. So when the earthquake comes, they can sway, right? They can move. Be that palm tree or that bamboo that moves with the wind, right? Bends but doesn't break. So stay focused on the goal. Stay clear, but give yourself the grace to just make some decisions. Give yourself the grace to understand that there will be something that happens that will impact you. And then move forward knowing that you have taken as much information as you could to make the best plan that you could, to execute it the best way that you could. And try to stave off the paranoia that's related to that fear of not being perfect, because none of us is. And that's the Rutledge perspective for this week. I hope that made some sense. It was just something that came up before and then was solidified with our latest tropical storm. I hope everyone who was in the greater Houston area stayed safe, was able to make it through the storm safely, now has their electricity restored, because I, for one, was without it for a while. So please be safe. We've still got a ways to go in this season, but if we'll all plan a little bit so that we can be ready when the next one comes, then maybe we can all get through it with the least amount of damage. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being a part of the Rutledge Perspective, for joining my village, and we'll catch you next week. Bye-bye. You've been watching the Rutledge Perspective. Thank you for tuning in. If we have given you a different perspective, or if you've learned something new that you hadn't thought about before, please subscribe to the Rutledge Perspective podcast where you get your favorite podcasts, and give us a like on iTunes or Google Play or Stitcher. We really appreciate it. And your feedback is important as well, as we use that to inform our next episodes. You can also head over to my website, laurelrutledge.com, and download a freebie called Where's My Mojo that can really help you get out of your rut, or maybe talk you back off that ledge of frustration. You can also find previous episodes of the Rutledge Perspective on laurelrutledge.com. I really appreciate your tuning in. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.